Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the Trailer Park Prophet coming at you live from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado, live on Blog Talk Radio. This is Sunday on Monday. Muchas gracias to each and every one of you for being out there today. Again, my name's Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet. This is Sunday on Monday on February 3rd, 2014, the day after the Stupid Bowl. How y'all doing? Did you have a nice weekend? Did you lose a whole bunch of money? What the hell happened at the Super Bowl yesterday? Oh my God, the Denver Donkeys just bit it, didn't they? They just kind of fell apart, man. Peyton Manning looked like a buffoon. Did you see that one, what do you call it? Well, a hike or whatever they call it in the shotgun. And the damn ball hit Peyton Manning on the helmet and ended up in a touchdown. I didn't watch the whole Super Bowl. I just couldn't bring myself to watch the Denver Donkeys in another Super Bowl. I mean, they've gotten beat so many times and broken my heart that I wasn't going to have my whole day revolve around the Denver Donkeys. I mean, that just wasn't going to happen. And although I stopped in a neighborhood restaurant called the Desert Sage here in Crestone, Colorado, and I went to the restaurant and they had the big screen going and they had a really nice group of Crestoners there watching the Super Bowl, and so I sat down and watched the second half, or part of the second half of the Super Bowl. And I don't think I've ever really seen anything like it. Everyone there at the restaurant was a little down, you know, it was 22-0, but there still was a second half. And for the Broncos to allow the Seahawks to score on the opening kickoff of the second period was just amazing. The second half, I mean, that right there was a kick in the gut to all us Bronco fans out there in Bronco America, that things just weren't exactly right in paradise. Amazing game, you know, as far as just being a true contrast between good and bad. We got some stories to do about the Super Bowl. I have some personal observations and maybe some futuristic predictions for you about the Super Bowl. We're also going to talk about the blacks, or some blacks in Chicago's response to the president's speech on Tuesday. We got problems on the eastern seaboard with starfish. We're going to talk about Saturday Night Live. There was an interview. We're going to do this interview. Bill O'Reilly from Fox interviewed President Obama before the Super Bowl, and we're going to have to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about Robert Reich. We're going to talk about Life Lessons of the Super Bowl by Alan West. Also, word to all you dumb gringos out there. We're going to talk a little bit about abortion. Good news on the abortion front. Abortion has gone down to 1973 levels. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about fake snow and fake people. And also we're going to talk about whether or not we ought to have a bank. Can you imagine this? A bank at the post office. And probably a lot more. We got other things I can talk about. I got piles of stuff that we can talk about today, and I just want everybody to take a deep breath and breathe in life and love and understanding, and think about the Trailer Park Prophet Love Connection. I'm going to stick an ad right in the front of the Trailer Park Prophet show. I want to remind you that the Trailer Park Prophet has his very own love connection. And we have tens of thousands of screened beautiful women of all ages, colors, and sizes all across the planet. And if you or somebody you know needs a little boost in their life, and might really enjoy going online and meeting some wonderful women who are all over the world and maybe eventually meeting them. Tell them about the Trailer Park Prophet Show. Tell them that we screen all the girls so that none of the women are jailbirds or prostitutes. These are just really nice women, tens of thousands of them. They can meet them on the Trailer Park Prophet Love Connection and make their life incredible. All right, I don't know why. I just had to do a little ad there. I got to try and do something, my friends. Let's see. Where should I start? Oh. Before we delve into the stupid bowl or the supper bowl or whatever that thing was yesterday, I did want to start off with this one tape here. It's one video of black leaders in Chicago. I posted it to my Facebook page, and I was going to do it on the show. I think I saw this on Friday, and I decided not to do it. And then I listened to it again today, and I decided that it was well worth our time to listen to, because these individuals that are in this video I want to play to you are black conservative leaders. Actually, I don't even think they're conservatives. They voted for Obama. They're from Chicago, and they sat down in a group of them. You're actually going to hear about 5 different black people, 5 different black community leaders. And this is, of course, after the State of the Union speech on Tuesday. And it comes from Rebel Pundit conducting an interview with a group of black activists in Chicago, the Chicago Black Grassroots Organization. The reactions to the president's palaver are surprising, considering Chicago is made up of mostly Democrats, and it is the state, of course, where Obama came from. So I want to, let me see if I can get this to post. You know, it just occurred to me I do have several tabs open. Maybe this won't work so good, but you know what? I have a good feeling today. I think the stars are aligned with the Trailer Park Prophet Show, and so yeah, here's this video right now. I think we're going to be okay. And actually, this is posted all over the internet, but I found this on Truth Revolt, Truth Revolt, and I want you to listen to these people. You know, I was really moved when I listened to this interview. I mean, I believe there's 3 black men and 1 young black woman, and you can see them in the background while the person being interviewed is on the video, and so you get a sense of the people that you're going to hear, that they're very serious individuals, that they've thought about what they're going to say, they're concerned about themselves and the black community, and they're basically doing a critique on, you know, who this Barack Obama is. Not really who this Barack Obama is. Well, yeah, they kind of get into that too, but it just gives you kind of a street level view of what some black activists in Chicago actually think of this president. And after the State of the Union speech on Tuesday, the Rebel Pundit conducted an interview with a group of black activists in Chicago, the Chicago Black Grassroots. Like I just said, the reactions to the president's palaver are surprising, considering Chicago is made up of mostly Democrats and it's a state where Obama was once a senator. The bottom line, they're fed up with the president. Here's some of the reactions from different people interviewed after the speech by President Barack Hussein Obama. Let's see. All right, take it away.
We just heard President Obama's State of the Union. Now I'm about to give you the state of Chicago and the state of the urban community.
What it did was solidify our expectation, which is very low, of this president because of his actions, and the fact that what he did was confirm the lack of involvement, the lack of concern for our community. He doesn't care.
He's been more hurtful to the black race than he has been helpful. Now, for a lot of symbolic reasons, a lot of people accept that, or shall I say, most well-to-do blacks or those who think they're better off, they accept that for symbolic reasons. But those of us at the bottom of the line, we don't accept that.
Mr. President, you know, we'd probably be better off with you cutting your presidency off right now. Just quit. Because if this is what you call helping us, then just stop helping us.
The State of the Union was the same old. A bunch of talk and rhetoric to give faith to a dying economy in America. And the reason why our economy is dying, because the president approach, as always, is to place blame on the corporate world. It's to place blame on the rich. The blame is equal. It's not the 1% problem. It's not a 99% problem. It is an American problem.
Amen.
The problem is patronage, nepotism, and cronyism. And you turn around and say he's going to sign an executive order to create minimum wage for federal services only. But what about the rest of us who don't have jobs at home? He hasn't addressed that issue. How is he going to create jobs for us? How can they create jobs for us if they don't bring us into the market? How can they create jobs for us if we're not at the table with them? So the president, to look at what this president just did, is really a shame because he didn't address any or none of the problems in our community. And that State of the Union was not a State of the Union. It was a state of the position on how the same old people is going to continue to get the same old resources. And I'm talking about these politically connected non-for-profits, the unions who has forced their conversations into the State of the Union. I support a higher wage. But I know with a higher wage come higher prices. I have a graduate degree. I've been unemployed for 4 years. What's going to happen if you raise the minimum wage? How is it going to affect me? How am I going to get a job? Increasing the minimum wage is not going to put unemployed people to work. It's not going to fix their economy. Creating industries and businesses in America, which will create jobs, is going to help our economy rebound. I didn't vote for him because I knew he had done nothing as state senator, to then go to become senator, and then further became the United States president. He's never done anything for the community. He didn't know the people in the community. All those things you see him they talk about in Ardville Garden, he wasn't doing that stuff for real. He trumped all the problems by talking in a grandiose, general type way, generalizing all the problems, the issues, and making it just real fuzzy and real warm. We might as well just had a cup of cocoa after he got through, because we didn't get nothing out of this but another real fuzzy, warm, beautiful statement. And everybody get up that was the powers that be get up and eat, and we all go home hungry again.
What Obama did was perpetuate a reality, perpetuate a narrative that is so far removed from what's really happening to us as poor people, as black people, and as young people.
But in Chicago, there are no Republicans, no Tea Partiers. This is one of the most democratic cities, but it's the largest city, one of the largest cities where they're starving our people out. I say to the president that you've done a grave disservice to us, and you'd be better just go ahead and step down. I mean, you can't turn this around. I mean, it's to the point to where that in which we knew from the beginning, because we're from Chicago.
It is our job to hold our government accountable to not only the words that come out of their mouth, but the funds that they release. It is our job to hold all elected officials true to the constitutional values that they say they represent.
And if you listen to this video carefully, and I know you just did, there's some key points that I thought they made that are worth expanding on. And I mean, that the opening remark, that first gentleman, he said that all Obama did in his State of the Union address was to provide faith in a dying economy. And he did it in a very calm way, but basically he was accusing the president of just being a cheerleader and going through the motions. And trying to give some of us out here the faith that the economy isn't dying. I mean, that in and of itself is a hell of a condemnation of the president. That he was just out there trying to give us all faith. When he knew, he meaning the president, actually knew and knows, because he's got the best information available to him on the planet, that in fact our economy's dying. And the president won't admit that. That's a hell of an accusation, man. That goes right to the core of a person's being. Basically, he's saying the president doesn't have any character. He's not trustworthy. He doesn't have any virtue. And he went on to say, the same guy talking about how all the people in Congress and all their guests there at the White House or at our state capitol, that they're the benefactors of cronyism. And that probably, I guess, is an even bigger sort of accusation, saying that, you know, the people there in Congress and the media, they're there to help out their own special interests. They're there to help out their own friends. And that cronyism is kind of the prevailing element in Washington, D.C. And so, I mean, it just adds fuel to the fire that President Obama and all of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, are just mere political actors. And they understand that they only need to get 50% plus one of their respective electorate to be in the position they're in, that they love, that is the best job that a person could ever have in their life, being a congressman or a senator, and that it's basically turned into a situation where the political actors are just focused on taking care of their special interest so that they get their campaign money, so that they can get their 51% worth of the vote, and so they can continue having the joy and the privilege of having the best job on the planet, being a congressman or a senator. And then that one guy kept talking about Obama's approach as a fuzzy, warm approach, you know, with his beautiful dialect and his impeccable delivery, and, you know, I mean, warm and fuzzy, you know, I mean, that is a hell of an indictment. I mean, basically what that's saying is that they see the president, or this man sees the president, as, you know, trying to put lipstick on a pig. Fuzzy warm. Hey, man, everything's okay. I got it under control. We're going to be all right. Don't worry. Be happy. Fuzzy warm. And that, I think that's probably another way to say that Obama's phony. That he has no moral foundation. So in light of that lack of solid foundation, he has no other alternative than to be fuzzy warm. Which is another indictment that the president is indeed just a political actor. It almost suggests that Obama isn't really a person. He's not a person of character. And so he can't really tell people the truth. He's not going to blame himself. He's not going to blame the Democratic Party, because he is truly a political actor. And so he has no other choice but to be warm and fuzzy. And he talked about starving our people in Chicago. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit, because I think I understand what that man was talking about. And as we've reported, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, a lot of the big Rust Belt cities, they're dying. And these are all cities that Democrats control. And I mentioned the other day that if you were to take Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, I think it's actually 3 of those cities. If you took them out of the equation for calculating how much gun violence we have in the United States compared to the rest of the world, that America would be way down that list. But when you include cities that are controlled by Democrats, like Chicago, like Detroit, like Philadelphia, when you include the gun violence from those 3 democratically run areas, then our gun violence rate is off the map. And the reason why it's starving the people is that more and more people have had to leave these cities for lack of work, for fear of violence, for lack of public service. Because remember, all these cities have promised such grandiose, huge retirement packages for their public employees that there's no money left to provide any services. And of course, a lot of those government workers, like Chicago as an example, after they reach retirement age, boom, they're out of the city. So they take that money down to Costa Rica or Florida or someplace like Texas where they don't get taxed. And then all that money's gone. As an example, gone from Chicago. And that's what he's talking about, starving our people out. And so the people that are there are being starved because there's less of the economy that's churning, less money's turning over, less stuff's getting bought, less jobs are being created. And then there's less prosperity for the people that are left, and they're basically starving. They don't have work. There are no jobs. I mean, the black unemployment rate of youth we reported nationwide is 88%. Well, in Chicago, it's 95%. And amongst blacks, I mean, it's even worse because that's where in the inner cities, I think, are the population's primarily black. And so the unemployment, I know, is worse in places like Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit. So the people that are left in these big democratically run cities, they have no place to go. I mean, if you have money, you can relocate, but there's a lot of people in Chicago and Philadelphia and Detroit, they don't have the money to just pick up and go. Plus, their houses aren't worth anything. I mean, normally you would sell off your house so that you could buy another house, and hopefully you've made some money over the years paying your mortgage. But that's not the case in Chicago. You can buy a house in Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, a nice, big, huge house, like 5,000 square foot house for $24,000, $30,000. The market is, you know, it's horrible in these areas. And, okay, let's see, moving on. Oh, by the way, you're listening to the Trailer Park Prophet. My name is Daniel Gray, coming at you live from Crestone, Colorado, on Blog Talk Radio. This is Sunday on Monday, and we're talking about all things political today. I saw, here's an example of what I consider propaganda. And it came from Our Time website, and it's a cartoon. You know how on Facebook they have these little postings and there's a cartoon? Well, this cartoon is like one you probably saw in elementary school. It shows a little boy on the steps of the Capitol, and he's talking to a cartoon of a bill, a piece of legislation. You know, you've all seen those, but most likely, I'm thinking most people have seen this. It's actually a video, too. I imagine you can find it on YouTube, how a bill becomes a law. And here's this little boy in this cartoon talking to this bill, and the bill looks kind of tired. And the caption is, how does a bill work, or how does a piece of legislation become a law, is the question that the little boy is asking the bill. And the bill says, that's an easy one, Billy. Ironically, the kid's name is Billy. Corporations write the bill, and then they bribe our elected officials until the bill passes. And unfortunately, a lot of people would say, yeah, right, you know, duh, I get that. Of course that's the way it is. Word, bro. And the truth is that couldn't be further from the truth. For every private lobbyist, either in the state house, your state house, or Congress, for every private lobbyist, there's probably 10 government lobbyists. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. Most lobbyists in Washington or at your state house are lobbying on behalf of government. And that's a fact. And in Colorado, and I'm sure it's the same all across the union, the Colorado Education Association, the Teachers Association, gives more money to campaigns and spends more money on lobbying than any other special interest group by a factor of 5. And that's the fact. Go check it out in your own state. I'm not saying that corporations aren't flexing their muscle. Yeah, they do that, but they're outnumbered. And to suggest that corporations bribe our elected officials, well, I was thinking when I read that out loud to you, then what they're considering a bribe is campaign contributions. Well, you look at Democrats, where do they get all their campaign contributions? They get it from unions. And they get it from corporations who do business with the government. And that's the fact. And this notion that that's an easy one, billing, corporations write the bill, then they bribe the elected officials until it passes. I mean, if it is happening, and I don't really think it is, unless you include campaign contributions, both sides are doing it. Both sides are doing it. And that's why, I know I've said this before, but I'm going to continue beating this horse. That's why we need public financing of campaigns. The only way that we're going to give the campaigns back to the people is to have the government finance the campaigns. That's the only way you're going to get special interest groups out of campaigns. But I can guarantee you the Democrats would never support a proposal like that. They never would, because then they couldn't demagogue the issue. I mean, they may say, oh yeah, public financing for campaigns, but I guarantee you couldn't get it through Congress. And Republicans would be against the bill as much as the Democrats. Because special interest groups would not want to see public financing of elections for Congress or the president. They don't want to see that. But they give you the impression through cartoons like this that that's what they'd like to see. But they no more want that than the man in the moon. Same thing with immigration reform. And that's why I think the Republicans might be playing the immigration reform in the House correctly. In their proposal, they will grant illegal aliens to stay here, but they can't become citizens. Meaning they can't vote. Now, if it's really about human dignity and about being fair and celebrating diversity, then I think Democrats should understand that these people did break our law and they shouldn't be rewarded with citizenship. We may be able to give them a lifelong, we can give them residency, but we don't have to give them citizenship. And remember, these people broke our law knowingly. It's not like they're just some innocent bystander in all this immigration debate. But we'll find out to see if the Democrats are really serious, if they want to say, okay, let's legitimize their existence here, but will they go along with no citizenship? Of course they won't. And that's why they want all these illegals to be made citizens through amnesty, because they want the votes. They absolutely, positively want the votes. Oh shit, I just did the most stupid thing. Hang on a second. Actually, it wasn't that stupid. Let's see. Oh, hey, PETA. Furious about Joe Namath's fur coat. spends the Super Bowl freaking out. Herman Cain writes here, he says, PETA boldly chooses to lose its mind over Joe Namath's coat. Way to go, PETA, never miss a chance to freak out over something inconsequential. And you know, the thought comes to me, you know, if you're going to go to the Super Bowl or you're going to watch the Super Bowl and you're going to get all exercised about every human behavior that offends your sensibilities, don't watch the Super Bowl. All right? It's none of your goddamn business. If Joe Namath wears a fur coat or somebody drinks a large Coke or has some processed food, how about mind your own goddamn business? All right? How's that sound out there? I mean, not you personally. I mean, I'm speaking in the royal we. But I'm tired of all this feigned outrage, you know, like everyone, and, you know, why can't we have a Super Bowl? And if you don't like macho men and you don't like pigskins that are made into football, don't watch the Super Bowl. You don't need to be there. And PETA and a lot of other people are the proverbial turd in the punch bowl. I mean, they look forward to the Super Bowl so they have something to criticize. And I think that should be kind of the mantra out there for all these liberal groups like PETA. Mind your own business. How about that? You know, you can't run your own life, but then you're out there trying to run everybody else's lives. All right, let's see here. Interesting story from Breitbart. Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is as white as a driven snow, she got in a lot of trouble during the 2012 election process. She ran for U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, and she had claimed in prior resumes that she was actually American Indian. And you should see her. I mean, white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, this woman is used a lie to advance her career. I mean, how do you ever get beyond that? If you lied about your...
It's almost here.
Oh, wait, what is this?
Set aside just for love. And low prices at Kroger make it easy to celebrate with the ones who make you laugh, the ones who inspire you, and the ones who take your breath away. At Kroger...
Huh. I didn't even know there was a video with all of this. I just want to read a little bit to you about the, remember I think we talked about this, yeah, it was in the State of the State address about Obama talking about a brand new retirement plan and that somehow it was going to be run through the post office, and I thought that was so weird. I mean, talk about trying to breathe life into a dead animal. Have you been to the post office lately? I mean, they look like museums. And the people are kind of salty, and they get, you know, I don't know, the post office. It could be handled by UPS and FedEx. But this story is from Breitbart, story written by Jeffrey Poor yesterday. In November, the U.S. Postal Service reported it had a $15 billion loss for fiscal year 2013, its seventh consecutive year with a loss. At the time, the Postmaster General Patrick Donahoe blamed Congress for the loss, citing an inflexible business model. Inflexible business model. Sending around dead tree parts all over the world for less than what it costs to actually send those dead tree parts around. Dead tree parts, I'm speaking of paper. And it says here, we achieved some excellent results for the year in terms of innovations, revenue gains, cost reductions, but without major legislative changes, we cannot overcome the limitations of our inflexible business model. That's what Donahue said, the head of the post office. Quote, Congress is moving forward with legislation that has the potential to give us greater flexibility and put us back on firm financial footing, and we strongly encourage that they continue moving forward. Well, one of the things that I'm sure you've heard that were proposed was to allow for the post office to close on Saturday. And they couldn't get that idea through Congress. So many Congress members, heard from their constituents, don't close down my little tiny post office. And we couldn't even shut down the post office for one darn day. That means you can't kill anything in government, looks like. Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, however, supports an idea that would expand the role of the U.S. Postal Service from just mail delivery to financial services as well. In an op-ed for the Huffington Post published Saturday, Warren cited an Office of the Inspector General report pointing out that 68 million Americans have no checking or savings account and rely on non-bank financial services like payday loans and check cashing to the tune of $89 billion in 2012. Okay, now, see, this is how the government ruins business. Now, there are those check cashing places all over the place, and they employ people, private employees. All right? And these private employees have jobs, obviously, get paid, and in turn pay taxes. And they're of no cost to our society. But if you put together a government program through the Postal Service that controlled check cashing and payday loans to the tune of $89 billion, it would wind up costing $89 billion to the government to provide the same service that doesn't cost us nothing. I mean, the government can't run anything right. It's like the old adage that I tried to make an old adage. Why would you want the government to run healthcare when it's made such an abysmal mess of Medicaid and Medicare? Makes no sense. Now, Warren sees this as an area for the Postal Service to get a foothold in order to see some access to affordable and fair financial services. I thought Dodd-Frank fixed all of that. So you see what's happening here? It's just layer after layer of government. And then the government can't handle anything. And instead of doing away with an agency like the Postal Service, they just keep piling more and more layers on top, causing more problems, and then need more layers to fix the problems they already caused. That's how government works.
Let's see here. Warren sees this as an area for the Postal Service. He already said that the OIG is for the possibility of the U.S. Postal Service offering banking services, bill paying, check cashing, small loans to its consumers. Warren wrote, with post offices, critical differences for millions of Americans who don't have basic banking services because there are almost no banks or bank branches in their neighborhood. So what? The senior Massachusetts senator argued for, I don't think she's a senior senator. Oh, yep, yes she is. No. Oh, maybe she is. Anyways, she hasn't been there very long. The senior Massachusetts senator argued for nothing fancy, just basic bill paying, check cashing, and small dollar loans. She wants the government to be in the loan business. She says that countries that have instituted a similar system with postal services have seen their earnings increase dramatically. But so were their costs. Of course, their earnings would go up. But here's another example of lying by omissions. Oh, yeah, the earnings went up. But so did the costs. So did the expenses. They don't tell the whole story. They're lying by omission. So I guess we do have this video. Let's see if we can listen to the senator. Senator, why don't you... Okay, here's this little ad on Valentine's Day. Don't forget your Valentines.
So many ways to say I love you.
Whether you're straight or gay or... Here's this story. Hang on.
U.S. households have no checking account nor any savings account. WBZ Radio Show Matthew behind the mic on this Monday morning with how the Postal Service is trying to deliver some help with that and a little bit of hope as well. Good morning, Joe.
Yeah, morning, David. We'll find out. You know the post office is bleeding money, and no one seems to have an idea of how to fix it other than cutting services. And as we've learned, there's little appetite for that. So the post office's Inspector General is embracing one of the more original ideas that's come up, an idea that would radically change the mission of the post office to offer basic banking services, things like bill paying, check cashing, and even small loans. The Inspector General issued a report showing just how badly these services are needed, David. Indeed, about 68 million Americans have no checking or savings account, and that is more than all households. As a result, those households, 7% of their annual means that are not.
Well, I'll tell you what, the idea already has one supporter, and that is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. She wrote a column about it in the Huffington Post over the weekend and says she plans to spend a lot of time working on this issue this year, pointing to similar experiments in other countries that have been so far successful.
It's almost here. That special day set aside just for love.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back.
With the ones who make you laugh.
Again, you know, what struck me about that little news piece is that, yes, I mean, they say that other countries are doing something like this. Doesn't say where. And I thought Dodd-Frank financial reform bill was supposed to take care of all this. You know, make these cashing organizations actually adhere to some regulations as far as a minimum on the amount of interest they could charge. I mean, that's what Dodd-Frank was going to do, but they didn't do that. I mean, they're supposed to do a lot more than that, but it's just interesting now that they're trying to revive the post office, and the post office is dead, for crying out loud. Or dying. I mean, more and more people pay bills online. All right? You know that. It's easy. Why bother with the stamp and all that? And now, and so what they're doing, you know, they want it so that if you can go there and pay your light bill, so you don't have to go to the mall or wherever, the light company or the gas bill. It's just more government intrusion. And like I said, if nothing else, the real reason not to do this is it's going to end up costing us money. We're going to, as a country, it's going to be a net loss. We're going to have less tax payers and more tax consumers. All right, I got this from the Best of Kane, Herman Cain. And I don't know why. Herman really got all exercise yesterday. I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl, but there was a Chrysler commercial, and it featured Bob Dylan. And Herman Cain is usually a very mannered individual, and I always see him as a Reagan-esque kind of guy because he's always the happy warrior. And the other thing, I digress a little bit here, the other reason why I like Herman Cain is when you ask him a question, he's very formal. He repeats the question and then answers it. I just absolutely love it. And he always answers the question. He doesn't dodge it. He doesn't spin it. He tells you what he thinks. I mean, it's just totally cool. But for some reason, this Chrysler commercial by Bob Dylan really got to Herman Cain because he kind of forgot his manners for a little bit. And in the headline here it says, News! Chrysler's Bob Dylan ad is a horrendous, shameful, steaming pile of crap. I mean, this really got Herman. And the praise it's receiving is a lot of affected
parochial nonsense. It sucks, just like Chrysler and the United Auto Workers. As soon as I saw Chrysler's Super Bowl ad starring Bob Dylan last night, I was pretty sure two things would happen. This is Herman Cain talking. Number one, boosters of domestic auto industry would lavish it with exaggerated emotional praise. Two, I would want to vomit. Fortunately, I controlled my bodily functions and avoided the second one. There was no avoiding the first. Once again, Chrysler avoided the issue of its mediocre quality and its history of embarrassing failure and fretted us with a shameless appeal of economic nationalism. A Richard Gebhardt used to put it, "Buy American." We were implored by the company that just a couple weeks ago became 100% owned by an Italian company that is restructuring so it can place its headquarters in the Netherlands as an EU tax dodge. Red, white, and blue, baby. Here's the total, unadulterated load of crap Chrysler put on last night. And let's give this a listen. All right, Bob Dylan, welcome to the Trailer Park Profit Show. No, Bob. I don't know. Bob's kind of a shy guy. Here we go. Bob Dylan.
Is there anything more American than America?
Duh. Bob must need some money.
You can't fake true cool. You can't duplicate legacy. Because what Detroit
Bob.
created was a first and became an inspiration to the rest of the world. Yeah, Detroit made cars, and cars made America. Making the best, the finest exhibition. And you can't make the heart and soul of a man wrong.
American pride. So let Germany bruise your beard. Let's hopefully make your life better easier. Assemble your phone. We will build your car.
No, and in light of what I just told you, that now Chrysler is wholly owned by Fiat, based out of Ireland or someplace now, I can't remember what they said, it's not an American company. In fact, a lot of their expertise in technology already went to France. And I think even more went to China. But Herman Cain goes on to say most of what Dylan says doesn't even make sense. Is there anything more American than America? That's a stupid thing to say. I mean, it's a rhetorical question, I guess, but I mean, American flag made in China is still an American flag, Bob Dylan. But it's just that it's rhetoric, and I think probably Herman Cain hit it right on the head that it's more of cheerleading than it is actual reality. And Herman goes on to say, guess not, Bob. You can import original. You can't fake true cool. You can't duplicate legacy. What does any of that mean? It's a big, meaningless serving and nonsense, as what then Chairman Robert Nardelli said when he went to beg Congress for Chrysler's second taxpayer bailout. You can't import the heart and soul of every man and woman working on the line. How stupid is that? You can't import the bloated union wage and benefit scale dedicated or dictated by the UAW, United Auto Worker, either. I don't think you would want to try. Quote, we believe in the Zoom, in the road, and the trust. And when it's made here, it's made with the one thing you can't import from anywhere else, American pride. That's just ridiculous. Of course you can't. And pride isn't just unique to Americans. It's just really weird. I mean, I would love to sit down and talk to the writers of this commercial and ask them, like, who's your target market here? I mean, who are you trying to impress? What was your background? Was your dad involved in your life? Apparently, American pride isn't important for watches and phones, but it's crucial for cars. This is getting to be a habit with Chrysler. All of the Detroit-based automakers have had chips on their shoulders for years about the rising market share being captured by transplants like Toyota, Nissan, Kia, and Fiat. But Chrysler, which has the lowest market share among the Detroit three and the least to recommend it in terms of product selection or quality, is the most shameless about attempting to guilt-trip customers into buying American-made products just because they are American-made, but only when it comes to cars. You understand that, don't you? Buy any watch or phone you want because American pride only counts when it's necessary to benefit desperate car companies. Yes, I know Chrysler is currently on the upside of the domestic auto industry's never-ending boom-bust cycle. They've been on that inside before, or that upside before. In case I need to remind you, this is a company that has received not one but two federal bailouts in the past 35 years. It is also a company that abandoned its headquarters city of Highland Park, Michigan, leaving it in utter ruin. I don't mean to suggest that it's all Chrysler's fault. A company can move its headquarters if it wants to. But when the Detroit automakers shamelessly try to appeal to consumers on the basis of how important they've been to the nation and to the communities, it's fair to note that one of them completely decimated the community it had called home for decades. The bottom line is that Chrysler has a history of making mediocre cars that not that many consumers want to buy, languishing at the bottom of the market, experiencing constant ownership churn, going from independent and publicly traded to German-owned to owned by an investment group and sold to the Italians while being to be rescued by the U.S. taxpayer roughly once every generation. At least its workers have American pride. If that's what you're calling
lunch hours, get drunk and stoned, which does not get them fired thanks to the UAW. In case you don't know what Herman is referencing here, there were several of these news exposés, where the reporter was out in the parking lot of a Chrysler factory with the camera watching them go out on break and getting high and drinking beer, then going back to build Chryslers. Maybe the question Dylan should have asked at the start of the ad is there anything more American than Chrysler? Oh my God. Why, yes. Companies that produce good products and consistently make a profit, not needing taxpayer bailouts and not needing to guilt-trip consumers, are more American than Chrysler. The Buy American crap from Detroit 3 and the UAW is an old and tired refrain.
But what you want, and for most of you, that's not a Chrysler car. And the other aspect of this, too, I want to bring in, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm convinced this is critical, because I think this gets right to the foundation and core of the progressive socialist movement, and it involves automobiles. And the reason automobiles are so important is that it's the second most expensive thing that people buy in their lives. And the irony and the hypocrisy is that many progressive socialists don't buy union-made cars. They buy foreign cars that are made in right-to-work states where they don't have to pay union wages. Because in Detroit, those automakers make roughly $85 an hour when you consider all the legacy costs, their retirement for when they retire, legacy costs, retirement costs, and also their medical care costs. All right, $85 an hour. Whereas in right-to-work states where they make BMW, Toyota, Honda, Kia, Subaru, their workers make about $45 an hour. And that's wages plus benefits. So it's half the cost. And yet, most progressive socialists drive non-union made cars. And I'm telling you, that is a huge disconnect. And I see it as a wedge issue that we can use against the progressive socialist movement to show to the world these people are hypocrites. Because if you want to have equal pay for equal work, if you want to have income equality, if you want to preach that kind of political ideology, then you have to walk the walk. You have to put your money where your mouth is. And if you don't drive a union-made car and you profess, oh, income equality, you're a phony. You're a hypocrite. Which de facto means everything you say or do or believe in is suspect. Because on the second most important purchase of your life, you chose to go to non-union shop to buy your car. And I don't care if it's used or brand new. You drive a car that's made in right-to-work state, and you're a Democrat, you're a progressive socialist, you're a hypocrite.
And you need to get your mind around it, you know, because from that you can extrapolate that, oh my God, progressive socialists, they're all a bunch of phonies. They're liars. They don't really mean what they say. And if that's the case, they don't mean what they say, then really what is it that they're after?
You know what? How can you say capitalism is bad, capitalism is evil, and then you turn around and you buy a car made in a non-union state? Well, you're exercising the beauty of capitalism. You're deciding with your own dollar where you want to buy your car and who you want to buy that car from, which is your right. But if you step out of basic consumerism of capitalism into the political arena, onto the public square, and you denounce, say, Walmart for not paying a living wage, and you drive a car from a right-to-work state, you drive a non-union car, you're a goddamn hypocrite. And really, it's on an insane proportion, too. You're a hyper hypocrite. You're the worst form of hypocrisy if you don't put your money where your mouth is. You talk the talk and don't walk the walk, you're a phony. And you got to look at people in this way. I mean, it's time for conservatives to take a critical look at their detractors, the opposition. And I think you'll find that a lot of times these people are exactly what I'm saying. They're hypocrites. And once we learn to point this out, not only to our friends and our workmates, but write editorials, tell anyone that'll listen about, the Trailer Park Prophet and how I, view this car thing. I really think it's like putting the Jell-O liquid into the mold and then into the freezer. You get the idea, oh my God, this is who these people are. They're ranting on and on and on that there ought to be a livable wage, but when they have an opportunity to put their money where their mouth is, they buy a non-union made car. I mean, it's crazy. It's insanity. I'm glad I thought of it. And I'm glad you're here with the Trailer Park Prophet. This is Sunday on Monday. My name is Daniel Gray. We're broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful, sunny Crestone, Colorado. You can't believe. Oh, wait. It's still sunny, but it looks like it's overcast. In fact, my friend told me that we might have a chance of snow all through the week. And I'm happy about it. I don't know why, but I'm happy about it. I mean, for some reason, I'm embracing the change of seasons, and I'm embracing old man winter. I mean, I don't want to get my butt kicked, but I don't mind shuffling through the snow. And I love watching the snow, and I love the peace it brings to the neighborhood. And, oh, well. Let's see here. Next story. Oh, my God, I got another Best of Kane story. But this is kind of interesting. We're going to go into this. This is the story about Saturday Night Live I told you about. The producer of Saturday Night Live, his name is Lorne Michaels, says Dems get a pass because they take it personally if they're mocked. And he's talking about how it is that on Saturday Night Live they're always making fun of Republicans and not so much making fun of liberals. And it says anyone who has watched Saturday Night Live for the last 10, 15 years knows that rarely do they ever make fun of Democrats. They spend hours mocking conservatives as out of touch, stupid, downright, I can't say that word. But Dems always seem to get a pass. In fact, until the disastrous Obamacare launch, it's hard to remember a single skit that made fun of President Obama. Now, in an interview with the New York magazine Vulture.com, shows producer Lonnie Michaels admits that Dems get treated with kid gloves. He says, are there any basic rules for what works and what doesn't politically? Republicans are easier for us than Democrats. Democrats tend to take it personally. Republicans think it's funny, but we're not sitting here every week going, quote, we're really got to do the first family. And what he said here, and that's exactly how he said it. And if you remember, Saturday Night Live was constantly after the Bush first family. And they had to do it. I mean, that's what Saturday Night Live viewers want. They want to see Republicans made fun of. And they love seeing the Bush family be made fun of, and yet Saturday Night Live doesn't make fun of this president. Sorry, but no, we're really got to do the first family. Is pretty much what kept the show afloat through the presidencies of Ford, Carter, Bush, Reagan, Clinton, and Bush Jr. Scattered throughout those decades are literally hundreds of SNL's most memorable moments, and they target both ends of the political spectrum. It's only with the arrival of Obama that they've decided that they're incapable of bringing the heat. So you'll forgive me if I say that most of Lorne Michaels' rationalization is just out and out BS. Saturday Night Live recently departed head writer Seth Meyers is a staunch liberal, a large-scale Obama donor, and is man primarily responsible for writing the meat of Tina Fey's Sarah Palin impression. Before he was head writer, the job belonged to Fey, whose other big-time progressive was a fervent Hillary Clinton supporter. With those two at the helm, do you really expect the Dems to take it on the chin? However, let's make Michaels at his word, or take Michaels at his word. Democrats take the jokes personally, while Republicans actually have a sense of humor. This means two things are true. The first is that taking it personally must include some pretty serious blowback. Yeah, exactly. That means they call up the station and bitch and moan and threaten to boycott SNL and all of their sponsors. Perhaps this takes the form of carping from their left-wing friends and allies, or maybe it's about being fearful of a little visit from the IRS. Either way, the left has succeeded in shutting them up before they go on the air, because the cast and crew would rather not deal with a bunch of whiny, outraged liberals. That's called prior restraint, and it's politically correct hallmark of liberal fascism. The second point is that it confirms what we already know about the left. They can't take the jokes, because their lives are based on politics. For them, it's political ideology first, everything else second. I was making this exact claim to my friend today on our walk today, that politics for progressive socialists is everything. It's their whole life. Anything they can do in their private dealings to hurt a conservative, it is to them a victory. And they live in this cloak of progressive socialism 24/7. That is their whole life. Conservatives live lives that are most enjoyable when they are free from federal intrusion. Liberals live lives that worship at the government altar and require a consistent bureaucratic presence in virtually every facet of their daily existence. Government is their religion. So if you make fun of it, you're treading on the only thing they hold sacred. Michaels went on to claim that America just isn't paying attention to the bigger picture, which is kind of an insult. He says this week our cold open is about three big stories. We have Piers Morgan interviewing A-Rod, Chris Christie, and Justin Bieber. We're doing more of that kind of thing than stuff about Benghazi or the new budget agreement. The country has lost interest in it. I can't tell you why. It's no less important, but in some way you can't do healthcare more than twice, at which point there's nothing left. But Jay Farrow does a really good Obama. I don't know what else to say. If you listen to NPR, they have a program on Saturday. It's called, Wait, I Can't Wait, or something like that. And they spend the whole hour just ridiculing Republicans. And that's what liberals do. I mean, they do character assassination. They use ad hominem attacks, name calling. I mean, they are the happiest people in the world. And I've seen scientific surveys, and they clearly find that progressive
also on the Bucket Crestone open forum, and we talk about politics and stuff like that. And I mean, if you disagree with Obama, you're a racist. I mean, within moments, because that's all progressive socialists can do, is play the race card.
You know, they really don't have much depth or breadth in their intellectual prowess for understanding our government or economics or even society. And so Herman finishes up here. He says, while it's nice to know that Michaels thinks the deaths of 4 Americans in Benghazi is no less important than Justin Bieber, this is again absolute hogwash. Were Obama a Republican, we'd be enjoying a relentless parade of sketches about the handling of Benghazi, dog eating, IRS targeting, non-closure at Gitmo, Obama's opulent vacations, his dictatorial executive orders, his revolving door of insane cabinet members, and his consistently scowling wife. The fact that Michaels claimed, quote, there's just nothing left means he's either scared to make the jokes or disinterested due to his own agenda. Whatever the real reason, it's shameful for cultural institution built on equal opportunity mocking the comedy gods will not be happy. All right, here, let's see. Next story. All right. Post. Okay, I got this story from The Blaze. You might want to consider checking out The Blaze, because not only does Glenn Beck's blog do news, but they also have other stories. They have their own Blaze TV, they have radio, and they also have different topics. Like this is one that came from the Blaze Science section. Headline: The arms just wait. Mysterious illness fish in man.
Experiments with this sick and healthy starfish. They saw the starfish ripping their appendages off. What? It says scientists began noticing the deaths last year, calling it sea star wasting syndrome. For now, according to the Oregon Public Broadcasting show Earth Fix, diver Laura James started documenting the unusual starfish deaths in the ocean off the coast of Washington. There were just splats. It looked like somebody had taken a laser gun and just zapped them, and they just vaporized. James told a news station of the starfish she began seeing near her home in Puget Sound. Whatever the cause, its impacts up to a dozen species of starfish up and down the coast. Some reports from the East Coast have come in as well, according to Earth Fix. The other individuals just started ripping themselves apart. Ben Miner, a biology professor at the Western Washington University, said of a once healthy starfish studied in the same tank with a sick one, the arms just crawl away from the particular body. Oh, God, that's creepy. It's after the arms crawled away that the guts of the starfish spilled out. Miner said that even healthy starfish placed in tanks without sick individuals still developed symptoms of the mysterious disease at the same rate, showing that an ill starfish isn't necessarily speeding up the process. Scientists don't know if it's a pathogen or ocean acidification is causing the illness. The scientific world considers getting to the bottom of this mass death important because of the ecological effect it could have. Starfish prey on various organisms, which, if
they go unchecked could populate out of control. There are ecologically important species. Marine epidemiologist Drew Harville with Cornell University told the news station, when you lose this many sea stars, it will certainly change the seascape. What's more, you're going to love this. Come on. What's more is a seemingly unrelated event. Thousands of starfish off the coast of South Texas were beached last week due to rough weather. Dr. David Hicks is one of the ones who really figured it out. Tony Risinger with the Texas Sea Grant at Texas A&M told Valley Star he thinks it was
rough seas and high winds and strong currents have made for the right conditions, along with the probability that starfish were close to the shore feeding. You know, but I'll tell you, have you seen this story? I mean, we've talked about this story about all the radiation released from the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. And I don't know what to believe, and I imagine somebody's going to make the assertion that the starfish off of Washington State may have been affected by the nuclear fallout or the nuclear tainted water in the Pacific Ocean. And I saw one story, I mean, that said that actual traces of radiation were being found in the bluefin tuna. We reported on that. And then some friend was telling me about how surfers have come down with radiation sickness. Now, you know, this gets into the realm of folk culture and urban legend. And you really, you know, it's hard to really know what's true and what's not, but it gives you kind of an opportunity to actually observe firsthand how an urban legend is made. And I bet you here, before long, we're going to hear about the starfish off the coast of Washington State being inundated with radioactive material that was in the Pacific Ocean from Fukushima, Japan. And we're going to talk more about this urban legend thing because I'm starting to stockpile some other stories that I think are interesting. They're kind of remedial education, but it'll give you some really good insight into the operations of the media, linking information, and how they actually utilize the urban legend to sow discord, discontent in the public. The arms just crawl away. I mean, God, that definitely creeped me out. What did I do here? Let's see here. You're listening to Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. My name is Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, and I'm just happy as a peach orchard boar that you're here today. All right, I'm sure you heard about this. Yesterday, President Obama gave an interview to Fox's Bill O'Reilly. He's done this a couple times on Super Bowl Sunday, and he went ahead and did it again yesterday, which I'm happy. You know, anytime the president will do an interview with anyone but somebody from the lamestream media who he knows and is guaranteed that they were not going to try to embarrass the president, I'm all for it. So once a year, once every 2 years, President Obama actually gives an interview to someone who isn't one of his sycophant friends in the media, and he did this yesterday with Fox's Bill O'Reilly. And I think we have the video here. I'd like to listen to the video. I've read the transcript, and the transcript was rather interesting and very telling. And basically what's going on here is that the president is blaming Sneeze for his poor poll rating. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but now, you know, he it's the limestream media. Oh, excuse me, that has the largest reach into the American households, not Fox. And darn, I thought I had this video. Maybe I don't have it right here. Alright, okay. Alright, I don't want to get it. I have this in another location. We'll do this later on in the show. I know I actually have the video, and I kind of want to listen to the video with you. I've listened to portions of the video, but I'd like to read more of it. Let's see, just the station ID. I have another. Well, yeah, let's do part of this. This is Robert Reich, famed progressive socialist economist. He writes a piece every day and posts it on Facebook, and I happen to be one of his friends, so you don't have to be. But he writes here, and it's, you know, the reason we keep addressing what Robert Reich says is because he's the actual conduit from the White House and the mucky mucks in the progressive socialist movement. He's the mouthpiece to tell other sycophant progressive socialists what to say to their students and in the public square and on the air and in their columns. And I mean, he is the go-to guy. He's kind of like the offensive coordinator for the Obama administration. But he begs the question here. He says, why not a maximum wage for top corporate executives? The minimum wage, first enacted in 1935, was intended to represent society's sense of minimal decent pay. Through the 1960s, it remained about half the nation's average wage. In those same years, top executives were paid about 20 to 30 times the average wage. Since then, though, the minimum has declined relative to the average, and the CEO pay has skyrocketed more than 300 times the average. By almost any standard, this is indecent. Now, indecence, like taking advantage of a child, being a pedophile, that's indecent in my mind. I mean, and remember, progressives aren't supposed to be judgmental. Anyways, going on. The CEO of Oracle, for example, now gets 1,287 times the pay of the nation's average worker. So what? So what? I mean, here's what I want you to think about, because we're going to be hearing this a lot through this campaign cycle, as I've already mentioned. But I want you to imagine for a moment, if we were to do what Robert Reich here is suggesting, and we took the pay of all the executives and made them on par with what Reich is proposing, say only 20 to 30 times more than the average or the lowest salary. If you took all that money, it wouldn't be enough to hire a mere pittance of individuals. In other words, it wouldn't make a tinker's damn bit of difference in the overall economy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you dice it up like Robert Reich has done, and they're going to do in the ensuing 2014 campaign cycle, I mean, when you look at it as they present it, you think, wow, that's quite a discrepancy there, you know? I mean, there's quite a void. That doesn't sound right. But then again, if you were to collect all that money from all the corporations, there wouldn't be enough money really there to hire that many more people. And it takes away from the whole notion of education and working hard and getting your way up the corporate ladder and making something of yourself. I mean, what's the sense of going to college and busting your butt if you're not going to be able to get to the top? I mean, people are motivated by money. When you take away the motivation of money, then we're going to lack the
the type of executives we need to run these big corporations. I mean, these individuals, for the most part, that are in these big corporations, I think, are people that are gifted businessmen and women. You know, they have a knack. They've been successful in the past. They know how to run a board. They know how to run a business. You know, they're not comparable to a person that scans your goods at the grocery store. It doesn't take any brains to scan. And a lot of times the skill of a CEO is not, it can't be quantifiable outside the increase in their profit and their stock price. So, I mean, actually it is quantifiable. And everyone involved in a corporation needs that corporation to succeed, including all the people that invest in the corporation. A lot of which, of course, like I've said before, are government retirement organizations. You know, they want, if you were to look at Oracle, and you were to look at who owns Oracle stock, you would find a lot of stock owned by private retirement funds. You just would. And those people want the stock to do good, not bad. And they don't want to have a Walmart clerk as a CEO. They want to have the best damn CEO they can find. I mean, even if the CEO of a large corporation is making millions of dollars a year, and yeah, I guess that does kind of sound indecent, but you know what? If that individual has a history of being a good minister of corporations and turning corporations around and making them profitable and hiring more people, they're worth whatever they want. You know, I mean they're worth what somebody will pay them, and if they have a history of turning companies around, a lot of people are going to offer them more money. You know, it's just the way it works. Let's see, it says, GE's CEO gets 491 times the average worker's pay. Company directors who set CEO pay explain they're keeping up with the pay of comparable CEOs in other corporations, a process that has escalated the rewards. So why not set a maximum of, say, 100 times the average worker's pay? Any corporation paying its CEO or any other executive in excess of 100 times the pay of the nation's average worker that year would have to pay an excessive executive pay tax equaling 10 times this overage, thereby eliciting the attention and discipline of shareholders. What do you think? I mean, I think it's insanity. I mean, it's, you know, we have a capitalist form of government here, and it's none of Robert Reich's business what their executives pay or paid. If the government were to pass a law like this, for one thing, I think it's unconstitutional, but, you know, the way this administration shredding the Constitution, you know, maybe something like this could get through Congress. But I think it wholly ignores the free market and the ability for wages to rise. And I'm sorry that there's so many people out there that are low wage earners, but a lot of that has to do to their poor choices in life. And having the government set a limit on what CEOs can make is just ridiculous. And anyways, corporations would find a way to get around that anyway. You're listening to Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. Still sunny. Waiting for the snow. I got another really good story. I hope this isn't Herman Cain, but I have a really... No, this is Alan West. This next story, I like this story. This is a interesting story and kind of a little spin on the Super Bowl. Oh my God, this is Best of Cain, man. I forgot. This is our third Cain story. I don't know. I just like the way this man thinks. And, He says, in general, life lesson from the Super Bowl, that's why they play the game. Herman Cain, why they play the game. What is the next touchdown you're pursuing in your life? He asks a question. I like him. He's always he's always asking like questions and make you kind of feel like you're part of Herman Cain's world. He says, congratulations to the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. I don't think anyone envisioned a 30 or a 43-8 blowout we witnessed last night, but the Seahawks clearly came prepared, focused, and determined, and with all due respect to the Broncos, who had a great season, the Seahawks showed themselves to be the best team last night. Watching the Super Bowl also reminded me of some life lessons. One of which is, that's why they play the game. You know how all the sports analysts are analyzing and synthesizing and downsizing and upsizing everything that was going to happen. One of the biggest talking points was that this game represented the best offense versus the best defense, and something had to give. Boy, I'll say. Well, we saw what gave. The best defense defeated the best offense. I guess that about sums it up, doesn't it? Did you notice that the game's first play was a fumble? That was Peyton Manning taking the snap from center, shotgun, and it hit him in the head. We talked about that earlier. Some people get dealt a fumble early in their lives. People want to blame their parents, blame their upbringing, and it follows them throughout their lives, and sometimes people use it as an excuse for what their situation is today. The Broncos were plagued by interceptions last night. An interception in life is when you have a setback, kind of like when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer back in 2006. It's heartbreaking if you lose a loved one, but stage 4 cancer, that was an interception in life. That was a setback, and we're all going to have that from time to time. So let's not let life's interceptions totally derail you. Deal with it, move on, because every morning you wake up and you're back on the playing field called in life. Every morning the Broncos and the Seahawks are done until they start again next year, but not you. Every morning you're back on the field and you want to try to avoid fumbles and interceptions. Amen. But every once in a while, you get a chance to enjoy the touchdown in life. And the touchdowns are different for different people. One of my touchdowns was getting married over 46 years ago. We now have 2 grown, responsible kids, and those are also touchdowns in my life. I've had a successful career, but it hasn't been without a lot of interceptions along the way. You might look ahead in your life and think you already know what's going to happen in the future. It's just like those analysts thought they could predict how the Super Bowl would go, but that's why they play the game. Nothing is ever settled until the teams take the field and play. Nothing in your life is settled until you get up and pursue the things that are in your heart. That's why they play the game. We live our lives every day on the playing field of life. But there is one difference between the Super Bowl and life. In the Super Bowl, they had halftime. They knew exactly when it was going to occur. In life, you never know when halftime occurs. Some of us are probably in the 4th quarter and don't know it. Some of us are in the 1st quarter and don't know it. Some people might be in the halftime of their life right now. The message is to live each day for something good that will put a smile on your face and a smile on the face of somebody else. That's why we get up every day and go back on the playing field of life. See why I like Herman Cain so much? He's like the quintessential happy warrior. Oh, this kind of blew my mind. Actually, it's really very telling. I have in front of me it's a picture of, it looks like a Buddhist monk. And it's a man, he's small in stature, and he's carrying a Glock, a pistol. And he's in the kush position, he's on his feet, he's I can't remember what not hunch down, crunch down, you know what I mean? There's a name for that, I can't remember. You see it in Eastern countries all the time. But the headline here of this guy that looks like a monk with a gun says, you can be full of kindness and love, but you cannot sleep next to a mad dog. If we are weak, our land will become Muslim. And this is from a guy named Ashin Wherewithu, Buddhist monk and spiritual leader of the Bernese anti-Muslim movement. And let's see, I got some other stuff on this. This is, I was really happy to see this. This was pretty enlightening. And this monk goes on to say, being secular doesn't mean that we should tolerate a creed that wants to kill us. This is in the Quran, the Muslim Quran, 8.12. You can look it up for yourself. Quote, I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve in Islam and the Prophet. Therefore, strike off their infidels' heads and strike off every fingertip of them. So he's saying to fellow Muslims in the Quran, I should say, Muhammad's telling Muslims that they're to go out there and they're supposed to kill infidels. And if you don't believe in Islam, you're an infidel. Not only should they strike off their heads, but strike off every single fingertip. That's in the Quran. If you don't believe me, check it out. The Quran 8.39 says, and fight with them until there is no more infidel blood, and religion should be only for Allah. Now obviously this Buddhist monk in Bernese understands. He can read the Quran. Why can't Americans read the Quran and understand what the hell's going on? And we've talked about several African countries that no longer allow Islam. We talked about Japan doesn't allow Islam. Australia doesn't allow Islam. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities and reason to understand that this country needs to have a discussion on whether or not we want Islam. We need to inform people what Islam is all about. And so many people are comfortably numb zombies out there, and they lack the intellectual curiosity to even find out on their own accord what Islam is about. I mean, they're going to believe the professor. They're going to believe the teacher. They're going to believe the talking head. And it could be the death of our liberty. If people don't wake up and take a critical look at Islam, we could be under the guise of Islam in 20 years. All right, here's some good news. This is really good news. You know, this is big news. This is from the Washington Post Health and Science section. This came out. When did this come out? I don't see where this came out. At any rate, interesting article here by Sandra Somashkinhar, published yesterday. The abortion rate in the United States dropped to its lowest point since the Supreme Court legalized the procedure in all 50 states, according to a study suggesting that the new long-acting contraceptive methods are having a significant impact on reducing unwanted pregnancies. There were fewer than 17 abortions for every 1,000 women in 2011. The latest year for which figures were available, according to a paper published Monday from the Guttmacher Institute, a pro-abortion rights think tank, that is down 13% from 2008 and a little higher than the rate in 1973 when the Supreme Court handed down the landmark Roe versus Wade decision. Now, the study did not examine the reasons for the drop, but the author suggests that one factor was greater reliance on new kinds of birth control, including intrauterine devices such as the Mirena, which can last for years and are not susceptible to user error like the daily pills or condoms. I didn't even know about this one. They also noted the economy has a contributing factor because people tend to adhere more strictly to their birth control during tough economic times, but they did not credit the recent wave of state laws restricting access to abortion because of those took effect in 2011 or later. Those restrictions will surely have an impact on the numbers going forward, but those all do with late-term abortions, which is fanticide. I mean, that's killing the baby in a real gross, mean-spirited, evil way, but I digressed. Quote, if the abortion rate continues to drop, we can't assume it's all due to positive factors such as better adherence to contraceptives, she said, calling the laws passed in 22 states onerous. 22 states. And let me digress here a little bit. The Republicans control, I believe, 30 state houses. Democrats control 20. And in all 30 states, the economy is better in those states that are controlled by Republicans than they are the states controlled by Democrats. The report comes as tensions intensify in the long simmering debate over abortion and contraception. Religious groups are locked in a closely watched battle with the Obama administration over new rules that require employees to offer birth control, blah, 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 blah. State legislators are preparing to push through another raft of restrictive laws after the record-setting period that saw the enactment of dozens of new laws. And really, some of the laws that various Republican state houses are passing are that, you know, the women actually look at an ultrasound of the baby before they kill it. And what is some of the other laws that are out there? They're not necessarily restricting abortion. They're just trying to make the woman take another critical look at her decision. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I really don't. I mean, you should really think about what you're doing when you decide to abort a child. It's just, in my mind, it's unconscionable. It's a baby. You know, you can't kill puppies, but you can kill a baby. You know, it's kind of weird. And let's see. Oh, yeah. The new laws include requirements that women undergo ultrasounds before obtaining abortions, as well as a licensing and inspection requirements for abortion providers. Oh, really? Like that? That's limiting the ability or limiting the access to abortion by actually having licensing and inspections. You know, we did a story, I can't remember that guy's name, but he had an abortion clinic in Chicago, and the place was filthy, and the guy was keeping body parts of the dead babies in formaldehyde and displaying them in jars. I mean, some of these places they're just loony bins where these abortion doctors, in fact, that abortion doctor went to jail, and what was his name? He was even a black guy, which I thought was even weirder because most of the abortions he did were of blacks. I don't know how you reconcile that in your mind, but obviously people have a profound sense and ability to compartmentalize their insanity. Let's see. What else is in this story I wanted to share with you? It does cite that they say the graphic conversation in the 1990s around the procedure they call late-term abortions, we talked about that, contributed to a greater awareness and horror over how abortions are performed, and they credit new technologies that allow people to better observe what happens in the womb even at the earliest stages of pregnancy. And I was saying the other day that I think school kids today ought to have to watch a abortion performed on video is fine. But you know what? You want to be pro-abortion, then you need to watch one or two of them. I mean, I'm dead serious on this. Some of you think I'm just being a little out there to make my point, but no, I'm saying I think we ought to start showing all these kids abortions. You know, look, you want to be pro-choice? Well, there you go. What do you think, Skippy? All right, you're listening to Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. This is Sunday on Monday, and it's the 3rd of February. Let's see. Oh, that's another show. We still have, I was going to tell you what we had left. And we're going to, let's see, we're going to do, let's see. Okay, we did the abortion story. We have Allen West, fake snow, and we already did the bank post office story. Well, I'm not really sure what we're going to do then. Let me see what I have in my stack. You know what I want to do? I want to do the interview with Obama by Bill O'Reilly. Oh, I like this. I got this from my friend Hawaiian Rob. And, you know, here's another thing, you know, we talked about the hypocrisy of a progressive socialist talking about income inequality and driving a car built by non-union work. We need to work on that. You need to get that into your arsenal of weapons to use against the progressive socialists. And I like this too. This is another arrow in your quiver. It says, granting amnesty to illegals is like rewarding bank robbers by allowing them to keep the money. It is. You know, it's just exactly like what George Orwell and Ayn Rand said. You know, eventually we're going to come to a time where right is wrong and wrong is right and up is down and down is up and wrong is right and right is wrong, and that's where we are with this whole amnesty thing. I mean, God darn it. Granting amnesty to illegals is like rewarding bank robbers by allowing them to keep the money. Easy way to put it. I think I missed a word. Granting amnesty to illegals is like rewarding bank robbers by allowing them to keep the money. Enough said. Alright, this... Oh, good. I want to do this story. I like this story. I don't know why. Probably because we do so much environmental nonsense story that I think probably this gives you an opportunity to understand just how freaking crazy people are getting in the society. I found this on Rare. Red is the center. Conspiracy theorists think government planted fake snow. That says this week mild weather across the south of the United States has raised a controversial question online. Was it just a light snow or a nefarious government conspiracy? In case you don't know, it snowed all over the south. In fact, it snowed in Hawaii, unless that's a bogus story, but I think that's right. And it snowed in Texas, it snowed all over the South, and that's really unusual for that to happen. It was definitely just snow, but the last few days have seen scores of videos like this from skeptics who claim that the snowflakes aren't the real deal. I have a sample of snow. Leaving the snow unmelted. The conspiracy reasoning goes like this. The snow is unusual in Georgia and other southwest areas and doesn't melt when burned. Therefore, it must be fake snow, distributed by the government as a diversion from the big government tyranny. And there's like a list of these YouTube videos that are out there. Now, this one says, we're being distracted from all fronts. We're preoccupied. They're up here signing bills, the government, to pretty much take away more of your rights and freedoms. Many of these videos have racked up thousands of views online, though presumably not everyone who watches this believes the whole fake weather thing. Some skeptics tie the fake snow to a wider and older conspiracy regarding geoengineering and the fear that the government is manipulating weather to use as a weapon. I've actually read these. Anyway, as you might expect, the fake government snow craze is pure paranoia. Science-savvy reporters and experts have been quick to point out that the snow doesn't melt when exposed to open flame like this. When you heat something like this, it goes from a solid to a gas. It's called sublimation. It doesn't go from a solid to a liquid, i.e. melting. Oh, and that black mark left on the snow and the chemical smell, that's from the butane in the lighter itself when it's left so close to the snow, which, by the way, does melt when exposed to heat, like from a microwave rather than an open flame. The U.S. Department of Interior is informed on sublimation and how that works, though I guess they could be in on it too, right? I mean, I don't know. You know, I hear about these things, and we hear about more things because of the internet. And this doesn't necessarily mean that more people are crazy. It just means that we know about more crazy people. But it's just interesting. I just think it's interesting. I wanted to hear one of these. Oh, here, right here. We can listen to one of these. Maybe on YouTube. I'd like to hear one of these people explain that there's chemical snow. Okay, here it is right now.
As you may or may not have been hearing about the snow incident, I have a sample of quote-unquote snow right here. Alright, what I'm about to do is I'm going to take a lighter and hold it up to the snow. I want to see what happens here, okay?
She's really gonna. She's burning this little clump of snow.
Toxic smoke. Excuse me. Leaving the snow unmelted, but yet burnt, as if it were plastic or styrofoam. Try a different part of the snow.
So she's burning the snow with her lighter. And she's on YouTube. Her name is Sugar Magnolia. And if you want to look at this, it's called Chemical Snow in Myrtle Beach.
Snow coming off of the quote-unquote snow.
But I mean, I'm trying to see how many actual...
Thank you guys for watching. We're in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It is 2:30 in the morning on January 30th, 2014.
But at any rate, I mean, this woman's had 11,668 actual clicks of people that have looked at her video. And I'm trying to see if there's anyone that chimes in. It says, wow, glad to see all them South Carolinians getting equality emancipation, whatever that is. Somebody's been smoking snow. Annie says, I like to think most residents of Myrtle Beach, where I live, know better. Sublimation, they cover it in school here. That black smoke, okay, yeah, they went into black smoke is, alright, at any rate, I just wanted to do that story. It's just kind of interesting how things get into the urban legend. I imagine more of these stories actually get into the urban legend because of Facebook and YouTube. I mean, I guess that's a no-brainer. Rabbis shift to say I do to intermarriage. You know, I thought this was an interesting story only because Jews have been marrying Gentiles for years. And I thought this was just an example of how religions follow their flock. or as I put it, I thought that the rabbi tenet was toast decades ago. Rabbis are following the flock. Same thing with the Catholic Church. I mean, the Catholic Church, most of the people that belong to the Catholic Church, you know, they use birth control, they've had abortions, they get divorced, and eventually, little by little, you can bet that the priests are going to follow their own flock too. But this notion that rabbis now, I mean, it is kind of a big deal because the rabbis are actually, you know, deciding to make it official. I guess in that part, it's kind of a good thing. I got this from the Jewish Daily Forward, and basically it says here in an article written by Nathan Gutman, when Rabbi Daniel Zima, let's see, things are kind of bouncing around a little bit here today. When Daniel Zima started his career back in the past century, the last thing he thought he'd ever do was perform intermarriages. But as the years pass, Zimmel, who leads the Temple Mock, a Reformed congregation in Washington, found that maintaining a strict rule on the issues became even more difficult. So, you know, being against marriages outside the religion has cost him business-wise because he can't perform the marriages. I mean, religions make good money off of renting their synagogue or church and actually being paid to administer the service, which is another reason why religion shouldn't be in marriage, you know, I mean, if they want to, of course. He said it's gotten harder and harder to say no, he recalled in an interview with the Forward, as he encountered situations and realities that increasingly challenged his beliefs and the teachings of his mentors. Eventually, in January 2009, Zimmel wrote a lengthy letter in his community explaining that his deliberations were over. He would no longer turn down requests to conduct interfaith weddings for members of the congregation. And I'm trying to think if they... this is just one individual. I don't think the Jewish church has actually come out and actually ordained this. But at any rate, I think it was kind of interesting. He says, I know the statistics that only 25% of children of unmarried families will identify as Jewish, but I want to keep those 25% in our community. At any rate, you know, it's just another example of how religion has taken a hard look at itself, and I'm glad to see this. You know, I think this is an evolution in religion, and I think it is going to be good for the overall health of the religion. I mean,
60 seconds.
And, you know, I mean, and again, you know, I don't think it's the business of government to be involved in religious sanctioned weddings. You know, I think it should be the discussion and decision of the individual religion whether or not they want to marry people of different faiths or different sexual preferences. But I think it should be left with the religions, and I think the government should get the heck out of their religious business. All right, everybody, time to get out of here. Drizzle drazzle. Drizzle drone, time of this prophet to go home. We'll see you on Wednesday for Hump Day with the Prophet. Keep it classy out there.